Sometimes a single word can just ignite a firestorm. So today, we're going to unpack a public clash that isn't really about what was said, but about the incredibly powerful act of framing an argument. Who gets to control the entire narrative before the debate even gets started? And really, it all boils down to this one question. This is at the very heart of a conflict between commentator Tucker Carlson and former President Donald Trump. It all kicked off when Carlson took some of Trump's very blunt language about oil and slapped a very specific, morally loaded accusation on it.
And this quote just nails it. This is where the real fight is. This isn't about policy details, nope. It's a high-stakes battle for control over moral judgment. Who gets to be the one to define, not just the words, but the intent behind those words?
Okay, so first up, let's look at Tucker Carlson's accusation. He argues that he wasn't just interpreting Trump's words. He was revealing the truth that he saw hiding right there in plain sight.
So, from Carlson's point of view, his job wasn't to invent a meaning. It was to expose the moral principle he believed was already there in what Trump said. His job, as he saw it, was just to name the ugly thing plainly.
And Carlson builds his case in 4 really clear steps. First, he takes Trump's language on oil. Then, he interprets it as just pure appetite, just wanting to take something. Third, he puts a powerful label on it, theft. And finally, he pivots and uses that label to directly challenge Trump's supporters on moral grounds.
For Carlson, this was the key. This wasn't just some slip of the tongue. He saw it as a moment of accidental honesty. He argues that this one phrase just sliced through all the strategic talk and exposed what he believed was the true motive of the whole strategy, just simple acquisition.
So, how did Trump's camp respond to this? Well, their defense was pretty simple. Carlson was deliberately shrinking the picture, focusing on one single tree to completely ignore the entire forest.
Trump's defense is crystal clear. He's saying that Carlson took one blunt, transactional phrase and just willfully ignored the much bigger, more complex strategic worldview behind it. He's not just refuting the accusation, he's accusing Carlson of a frame job of his very own.
And his supporters echo this, framing it as a kind of translation problem. They argue that a blunt, businesslike way of talking, full of words about leverage and outcomes, is being unfairly treated like it's a full confession of his motives when it was really meant to describe a hard-nosed strategy.
And this right here is the core of it all, a tale of 2 frames. One side sees raw appetite, moral corruption, all summed up in that one word, theft. The other side sees a pragmatic, maybe harsh, but pragmatic path to creating order and stability in a chaotic world, which they just call strategy.
So, we've got these 2 totally opposing frames, and that brings up a pretty crucial point. Is it ever really that simple? Well, a third perspective suggests there's some critical nuance being completely lost in the crossfire.
And this is where theologian N.T. Wright enters the picture. He suggests that in this really intense conflict, both sides might actually be a little bit right and a little bit wrong. He's really urging us to take a more careful look.
Now, Wright agrees with Carlson on one key point. Trump's language is morally troubling. He argues that supporters can't just shrug it off or excuse it as, oh, that's just Trump being Trump. The concern itself, he says, is legitimate. But here's the crucial difference. Wright believes that while Carlson's concern is totally valid, his final verdict was just premature. He makes the case that a leader can be pursuing a wider, maybe even a legitimate strategy, and still speak in a morally coarse way. The 2 things, a big goal and ugly language, they aren't mutually exclusive. Both can be true at the same time.
So what's the big lesson from all of this? Well, it really brings us to the core takeaway, the incredible, and let's be honest, often dangerous power of framing an argument before it even really begins. And this is a perfect example of what's at play here. Once a powerful, emotionally charged moral frame like theft gets established, it can basically just end the conversation. It tells the audience how to feel about something before they've even had a chance to really examine the complexities.
Think of it this way. A single, powerful label can act like a giant red stamp, just overshadowing all the complex arguments hiding underneath it. All the intricate details of geopolitical strategy and nuance, they just can't compete once a simple, powerful, moral verdict has been handed down.
And that's why this matters. This whole debate is a perfect case study of our modern world. The battle often isn't for truth, but for control of the narrative frame, and the winner is usually the one who gets to define the terms of the debate first.
So this leaves all of us with a set of really crucial questions we should be asking ourselves whenever we see these powerful frames out in the wild. It's really about learning to see the frame itself, not just the picture inside it.
And that leaves us with one final and kind of provocative thought. In a world of competing frames, maybe the ultimate challenge isn't just picking the right side. Maybe it's protecting our own ability to judge fairly, free from the pull of any single, powerful, and all-too-simple label.